All right, welcome to the Unfazed, Unedited podcast, where we provide commentary on complicated topics in an uncomplicated format. I'm Dr. Shaunna Payne Gold, and I go by she, her, hers pronouns. And I have Dr. Lisa with me as we give you a little bit of a bonus episode, right, Lisa?
Yes. Hi, everyone. We're jumping into your feeds twice this week because we just had a
Yeah.
little Schadenfreude
Yes,
about this
yes.
about this weekend's past events. And so I'm gonna hand it back over to Dr. Shaunna here to lead us in.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, I was so fascinated. You and I were texting a little bit back and forth over this weekend because for
Mm-hmm.
those who are listeners here in the area, I live in the DMV area, which means that Washington, D.C. proper is extremely accessible to me and to my entire county. But I happen to be out of town in Philadelphia, staying right across from the fountain and the free library, and not far from the rocky steps to the art museum and so forth. And so interestingly enough, the Schadenfreude that I was feeling leaving the DMV area going to Philadelphia was, yay, it's supposed to be a 80% chance of not just rain, but torrential flash flooding downpours during the quote unquote 250th Army
Mm-hmm.
anniversary
Mm-hmm.
parade, which just happens to, yeah, right, coincide with 47's birthday. So I'm thinking, yay, let it rain, right? Um, and yet I was a little bit I won't say in shock, but I was still curious to see how things would go because I've talked with some of my military friends and some of my folks that work at the Pentagon and so forth, and it was just highly doubtful from a common sense perspective that it's even safe to have any type of military parade in Washington, D.C., because anyone who knows our city knows that we have a very complex metro train underground grid.
Mm-hmm.
And so, military tanks are extremely heavy and all of that so I'm thinking to myself, this could be disastrous to the infrastructure, but here we are with the parade. I mean, people were seeing its own parade of military tanks and other foolishness coming into the city the week before leading up to the parade, so we knew it was
Right,
going to
right.
happen. And so anyway, I'm thinking, well, let it rain, even though I wish it didn't have to happen. And I feel bad for our service people who really don't want to be there, but let's see what happens. And again, Lisa, I'm out of town for the weekend. And I mean, intentionally out of town, want to go have some
Mm-hmm.
fun. I'm not going out of the country this summer. I've got a lot of obligations and other things that just will not allow me to travel like that this summer. So, any little escape for a weekend, extended weekend, I'm just not trying to see it. Well, of course, it comes up in my feed because most of the people that I'm affiliated with or associated with, obviously, we live in the area. Lisa, let me tell you, when you see the National Mall where you can still see the grass for any, it ain't a whole lot of people there. Okay, it's just
Mm-hmm.
not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One media outlet, gosh, I can't remember which one, but they used the language sparse crowds, and I'm thinking that's the understatement of the century,
Mm.
because there was this assumption that there was going to be, 200,000 people in
Yeah,
downtown
yeah.
DC when it might have been 20,000 at most, which isn't saying very much. Um, so yeah, definitely bad weather, not a lot of crowds out. Um, hey, if nothing else, I give credit to the people that actually showed up because you had to be diehard in order to even be there and be affiliated with
Mm-hmm.
the event
Mm-hmm.
at all. Um, and at the same time, I could look out of my hotel window and watch all of the protesters going down Franklin towards Love Park and City Hall in Philadelphia as one of many
Mm-hmm.
No Kings protests across the country in response to the military parade. And so, with that, I think what's interesting, even as I talked with friends of mine who are, military or, veterans or in some way affiliated with government or service, um, is that usually people come to protest in pretty large cities, like they'll all come to DC, for example.
Mhm.
And instead, actually, it makes protesters less controllable, if you will, or less suppressed if we do spread out. And that's exactly what people did this weekend. You had about 2,000 people in Mobile, Alabama, 2,000 folks outside of Anchorage, Alaska's downtown area. There are 40 different events in Arizona. Almost 50,000 people in San Francisco and 60,000 more in San Diego. And so, when you think about how people started to speak up, I'm like, this is interesting because my brain still wants to do some type of cross tabulation between who's out there, who's always been this way, has a history and a tradition of protest,
Mhm.
and folks that may have had their aha moment to say, wait a minute, this is not what I voted for, and I'm having a change of heart. But what I did notice when I was in Philadelphia was that there were not a whole lot of people with melanin like me out there marching. Let me just be clear on that. It just
Mhm.
wasn't. I posted up at a really nice sports bar and watched F1 racing while looking out the window at the march, and I just did not see a lot of people like me outside. And so, Lisa, I'm curious, right? Because I know there's marches all over the country and so forth, but I just wonder what this says about not just resistance, but the type of resistance, right? Like, I'm very happy that resistance is happening and that people are seeing that having a king-like authoritarian figure in this country is the exact opposite of what we were meant to be. And at the
Mhm.
same time, are these people that have a change of heart, or are they just trying to be on the right side of history? Who are those folks that are marching?
Yeah.
I guess is my bigger
Yeah.
question, Lisa. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but who are those folks? It wasn't me because I was sipping a nice, lovely mimosa over my brunch and enjoyed it thoroughly while everyone else was out marching, and I have no regrets. But who's marching,
Yeah.
Lisa?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't
When you
either.
think, what was it like? What were the final tallies? Like, was it 79 million to 77 million or
Mm-hmm.
81 to 78 million?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
many, many
Mm-hmm.
millions of people that voted for Vice President Kamala Harris. And then we also know that there are
Mm-hmm.
millions and millions of people who did not vote for either candidate,
That's right.
or
That's right.
voted third party.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, as we've said on this podcast before, a majority of
Mm-hmm.
people did not vote for Donald Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to wonder that I have to question whether or not many of the people who are
Mm-hmm.
out protesting were folks who have regret, because I've been doing a lot of reading
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of listening to people who voted for him, and there's not much regret. There's some things they don't like, but it has not yet been enough to lead them to say, oops, right? There's just a lot of magical thinking
Mm.
that's happening. A lot of kind
Mm-hmm.
of like dissociation from
Yeah.
the impact of their vote. So I am not sure that the protests
Mm-hmm.
this past weekend were made up of groups that were not already in opposition.
Mm.
Um, but I don't know that, right? Like, I don't know if there's been
Yeah.
any news organization that has cataloged that. And you know, I
Mm-hmm.
live in a fairly white suburb of Denver. It wasn't, the
Mm-hmm.
protest was not an exclusively white. It was, for where I live, it was fairly multiracial, but that is still not particularly
Yes,
multiracial.
I gotcha. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I didn't go to downtown Denver, so I don't know what that looked like. I just have
Mm-hmm.
seen aerial images, and it was
Yes.
very, very busy. There were a lot of people in downtown
Oh,
Denver.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, and from what I've read, there's a data journalist named G. Elliott Morris, who says that their back of the envelope math, as they call it, a
Mm-hmm.
range, is somewhere between 4 and 6 million folks that attended some form of the No King's
Mm-hmm.
Day protest somewhere in the country. And so, given that, what I think is interesting is that you all's president said, as he wink, wink, nod, nod, publicly opposed the demonstrations, he said, I don't feel like a king.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I
This,
mean, I
yeah,
I don't know. It's just freaking ridiculous. I mean, I was very happy to see so few people attended the birthday parade, which
me
let's be
too.
clear. It was a
Me
birthday
too.
parade because the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the army had never planned to do this parade. And then he rolls in and
Never,
he's like, I want a parade. And like,
never.
looky
Hmm.
there, like within 4 months, this thing gets whipped up together.
Well,
$45
remember
million.
they had he flirted with this back in
Yes.
2017. Now, I
And
don't know what the
yep.
plans were, but yeah, definitely flirted with it
Oh
before.
no, he wants it. But it was so funny because when you look at those, what the worry was that there was going to be this military parade that was going to look akin to like the North Korea military parades,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Or like
yes.
some kind of Tiananmen Square moment where you have like a person standing in front of this like huge military with guns raised or whatever, or tank or something like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's just this like gray, drizzly, like all of the
A
troops
mess.
that I saw walking weren't really walking in unison, and I've heard mixed opinions about why that was. I don't really know
Me
why.
too. Yeah,
And
yeah. Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
people who were watching, like Marco Rubio was yawning, and everyone just looked kind of miserable and bored. I mean, I didn't pay a lot of
Mm-hmm.
attention to it because I didn't want to put my
Yeah.
energy there. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I did have a little bit of satisfaction around that. And then knowing that there were millions of people across the country coming out to say this is not acceptable, whether or not you think you feel like a king, because
Mm-hmm.
you're certainly acting like one.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was a the court case. The Gavin Newsom sued the federal government around the deployment of the National Guard and the Marines in California without his permission. Well, it was the National
Mm-hmm.
Guard specifically, and the
Yeah.
judge in the case said something like, "So I forget." I'm going to butcher exactly how it was framed, but it was in relation to a monarch. And he said, so you're arguing that the situation is if the president says there's a rebellion, then there's a rebellion to the Department of Justice, right?
Oh,
Which
Lord.
is like
Mm-hmm.
that. And he had made some reference to that being very monarchical, right? Like that's what monarchs do. They say this is the reality, and that becomes the reality because they said so, and you don't need any evidence of it, which is essentially what the DOJ was arguing as to
Uh-huh.
why troops could be
Uh-huh.
sent to Los Angeles because Trump said there was a rebellion. So therefore there must be a rebellion, right? So
Oh my
I don't,
gosh.
yeah,
Well,
but
the thing that it it reminded me of, this is a for those who have never read the story, but hey, the emperor's new clothes, right? It's like,
oh, right,
do you not understand, 47, that you don't have any clothes on? You're so vain to think that you do, but we all see you. We see you for who you are, or at least a grand number of folks see him for who
right.
he
Not
is, and
everyone.
is exactly. And with that, his unwillingness to recognize or admit any shortcoming, flaw, power, lack of power. I just think it's like, I used to think, I used to think before he became president the first time, I used to think I knew people who were narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I continued to watch him unfold, I'm thinking, even the worst narcissist that I thought I knew in real life is not even on the same planet as he is. Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
and I'm talking about not making an excuse at all. I think everything is intentional, but I can't fathom another human being other than some of the names that my mouth won't even say because historically they've been horrendous to people. He's in that category. He's on that planet with them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And with that, it's, I've been saying this for a long time now, and I'll continue to hold to it, is that no, the emperor has no clothes on. And what's sad is that a lot of his quote unquote subjects don't have any on either, because part of this problem is who he thinks he is. And the other problem are all the Americans that empower it.
Right.
That is concerning to me. That is very concerning to me.
Yeah, they're not able to see or understand that he's actually not doing that much. He's just bombastic, kind of like throwing things out there in executive orders that are meaningless and can't be implemented, because then people
There you
think that
go.
he's doing all this stuff, right? And Doge was a total flop. His birthday parade was a total flop. Like, we've now got a freaking potential on the brink of nuclear war in the Middle East between Israel and Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and the Ukraine Russia situation was not ended on day one, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
he wrote a memo saying that there are only two sexes and that is determined at conception, which is biologically incorrect and makes everyone
Incorrect.
female, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, great, so he's doing things. So yeah, I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
like, I as an from what I understand from narcissists is they are not capable of acknowledging when they're wrong or understanding the harm that they're doing to people. Like, so it's not
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
he is resistant to acknowledging these things that you articulated a few minutes ago. It's that he
Mm-hmm.
actually cannot do it. Like, he is not
Mm-hmm.
capable of doing it. That's the personality disorder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Incapable of doing it. And which is why, to that great end, if he's incapable of acknowledging that, then I hate to make this comparison because it's bad and it's an insult to children. And yet at the same time, I'm like, there are characteristics that children don't have yet because they haven't developed them. And so
Yeah.
people that influence them and raise them and support them have to step in to make sure that they either don't harm themselves or don't harm someone else, or all these other things that we have to do to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that they are surrounded with the right influence. And I'm like, what? Now this becomes a psychology lesson here, Lisa, a human development lesson. Think about every single instance of life that had to happen or not happen in order to create a human being that functions in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I think about, I mean, even on the mildest things that I think about with other people, where I'm like, okay, you just came in here and talked crazy to somebody and you're 40, 50, 60 years old. Part of me is like, you're an asshole. And the other part of me is like, I need to see the laundry list of people that allowed you to behave like this for
Right.
years unchecked,
Yeah.
right? And I think I've grappled with this more as a parent raising kids, obviously, is that, you know, young bullies become old bullies, they're like that type of thing. Young narcissists become old narcissists. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this man is 79 years old as of this weekend. Everybody needs to get in line that allowed him to become the person that he is.
Yeah. He's definitely had a litany of enablers and is currently surrounded by them. He doesn't have any kind of parental figure, to use your um, analogy of being like a kid, telling him not to put his hand on the stove, right?
There you
So,
go. There you go.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. And so, with that, I will never feel sorry for him. And at the same time, I'm still not accusatory of one person. I'm accusatory of decades
yeah.
of an experience that leads us to the person that is now wreaking havoc on the world,
Mm-hmm.
in ways that are unconscionable. I mean, just incredible, incredible. So, with that, Lisa, I I know that this conversation needed to be timely because this has been a long time coming. Like we said, he's been cooking that thing up since 2017. And at the same time, I found this eerie dichotomy of yay, being proud that people are standing up and
Yep. Yep.
protesting, but at the same time, being hesitant about the why, the who, the
Yep.
how,
Yep.
the intentionality behind it, and just having hopefully a healthy dose of skepticism around who's out there with their really nice, posters and their chants and all these other things. When I'm like, I'm going to have brunch. I've done this the majority of my life. I'm tired. Do your thing. I'm fully supportive, yet also in this moment fully detached and okay with that.
Yeah. And people who have not historically had to kind of live discrimination and resistance their whole lives, it's their time to step up. So, and it does, I think it does make a difference. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
I do. Yeah.
but it cannot, the foot must remain on the gas pedal.
Absolutely. It has to. It has to. Um, and with that too, I also want to make sure that we acknowledge that, let's be clear, I need to find the name of the individual, but we had one individual that lost their life during this particular protest. So, we just need to hold that protesting it can be dangerous, and at the same time, what are you willing to risk to take hold of your country, influence decision
Mm-hmm.
makers, um and just being aware of that. Arthur Liu is the individual that lost their life in Salt Lake City, Utah.
In Utah, yeah, I didn't know that details had come out about that because they were originally saying that
Mm-hmm.
it was an issue between four people, like separate from the parade. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
attached to the parade. Have they
Mm-hmm.
released details saying that it was because like it was related to him being at the protest?
Yes, it's saying during the march, injuring a bystander. And part of the reason why some of the details kind of came forward is because this individual actually was on one of my favorite shows, Project Runway, was a designer on that show, and a lot of their friends posted after finding out that this individual died of their injuries. So yes, it had to do with it, but I think what's uh, sad is that this person was a member of the LGBTQ plus community. And again, it's like, okay, I don't know. I don't know if this was a friendly fire situation, what have you. That part hasn't come out, but it certainly was during the active march. So,
Yeah, that's the thing I think that's important to understand is that
yes.
the shooting may not have been related to the protest. It may have just been at
Mm-hmm.
the protest. So
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
piece. So to, I guess, to
Absolutely.
allay people's fears about the going to the protest. To your point is well taken. It can be dangerous. What are you willing to put on the line? And you should be willing to put a lot. This
Mm-hmm.
shooting there may not actually be an act of political violence. We just don't know that yet.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So we continue to think about how this unfolds. We wanted to give you a bonus episode because this was something that could not wait because it was so at top of mind. And also, too, Lisa, frankly, this won't be the last during this
Oh no.
administration.
Oh no.
It won't be the last.
Military parade every weekend. A military parade for you, Shaunna. A military parade for
Hello.
Kendrick. A military parade for
Hello.
Trey.
Hello, exactly. It's like, yeah, this will not be the end of this conversation, and who knows, we might have another bonus episode depending on what pops up. But just know that we're aware, even as Dr. Lisa and I weren't really trying to focus on these topics, they kept coming forward,
Mm-hmm.
partially because it was so widespread, and then also too because I live kind of in the heartbeat of the nation's capital. So here we are.
Yep.
So with that, we hope you enjoyed this quick bonus episode. Again, we are still, look, since we're talking about parades and marches, we are still marching towards 200, y'all, 200.
Yep.
So continue to listen in. We never run out of things to discuss. Please make sure that you follow us on all of your socials. Of course, our website is unfazedpodcast.com. Like, subscribe, leave a review, and share this bonus episode with your friends, coworkers, or others in this phase of your life. So, Lisa, until the next military parade.
Until the next parade.